Selamat pagi. It is an absolute honor to be speaking again to a Malaysian audience and the Association of Positive Psychology. And that term is what made me want to come and speak today. So when the organisers reached out to me and said, listen Dion, this is who we are, this is our mission. As soon as I saw positive psychology, I was always going to come and speak to you. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. I used to have an apartment in Johor Bahru. I was actually born and raised in Singapore, but I'm talking to you from New Zealand. You'll see my books behind me. I wrote the world's first good news book about PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and more recently the VIP of mental health. And what I really want to share today is for the youth. I also used to be a community police officer, so I used to police in the community and a trained youth aid officer, and my heart towards youth has always been very strong because I'm still in touch with my inner youth. And so normally when you hear from speakers with this sort of content, there's a real power differential between someone who sort of knows what they're talking about and someone that's struggling. It's not an equality, and unfortunately we do that for our kids. So if you've ever studied transactional analysis, we only have 3 psychological states: adult, parent, and child. Now, I don't know about you, but I have my own kids and they don't listen to me all the time. So if we talk to people like this power differential, I'm the expert, do what I say, doesn't really work. So the golden rule in anything to do with helping someone who's struggling, this is very important. The single most accurate predictor for success is the relationship between the person struggling and the person that can help. So I always try and have that as an equality. So I'm speaking to youth today. I'm talking from my teenage self to my teenage self in the context of young people and teenagers on this particular call. Yes, I can talk to the adults on this call, and yes, I can talk to the parents, and we'll start there because I'm speaking on behalf of you young people, right? So when I'm talking to adults and parents, I use 3 concepts which in New Zealand we call ina mana, generating pride and self-esteem and confidence from the inside out. And that program of mine has 3 of my signature programs within it. Make peace with the mirror, and if you've seen any of my marketing material, Goldcast and speaking, it started with make peace with the mirror. And in that speech, in that workshop, is the 4 L's of confidence. And that's where we'll start with young people. The next module is the VIP of mental health, really understanding where you get your value from. Because most of the issues that young people are going to struggle with is going to be bullying, self-esteem, social acceptance, guys and girls, sex, drugs, porn, and it all mixes together in where you get most of your value from. As an example, bullying is attacking one of your 4 L's to decrease your value and increase the bully's value, as an example. And then the last module is your subconscious bodyguards. Understanding within yourself, how are you acting in certain emotions? So for today's talk, empowering youth to have strong mental health and resilience, is really understanding those 4 L's of confidence, understanding the VIP of mental health, how they work together in our youth's language, not ours. And so I don't know about you, but there's nothing more frustrating where I sit somewhere to learn and someone just talks at me with their language. So all of my words today, all of my frameworks and programs that I'm sharing today are shared to be put in this space for you to take and interpret for you. And that is a term of empowerment. My whole focus is empowering people. And empowerment means you take a skill or a gift and you give it. You give it away. And if it's a skill, you have to train that skill into that person. Now I can speak to you today and I can share what I'm thinking, and that will affect how you feel and may affect how you behave. But if I want to share a skill, how do you take a young person that's been bullied and rebuild them, rebuild their self-esteem, self-confidence? That is a process that has a skill involved. That's why training and workshops are so important. So today I'm going to share the frameworks, put our young people's language and context in there so you can understand that none of this is scary. Even when we go all the way out, we start talking about depression, anxiety, suicide, and killing yourself. I'm very comfortable in that space. Because in that space, in the darkest of the dark, are the greatest lessons if you have the right lens put on what you're looking at and what you're feeling. So that's my role for today, and we're going to start first with making peace with the mirror, the 4 L's of confidence. So let's get into making peace with the mirror. Now this is critical. This is the base block for everything in life. Because if you can't make peace with what you see in the mirror, no matter what anyone says externally, you're not going to be able to increase that value. For example, I was so skinny when I was a young person. They used to tease me and call me runaway skeleton. And my acne was so bad that they would call me pizza face. Now when I looked in the mirror, I saw someone who was skinny, weak and ugly. That's what I saw in the mirror because of how I looked. Now it didn't matter how many times my parents said, no, we love you, we're proud of you, beauty's on the inside, and even though you might have acne, then just an external validation of something that I didn't have peace with in the mirror is not powerful enough. And sadly, external love is not enough to save our kids when they get to the point of killing themselves. I'll discuss that later, but the good news is when you can teach the 4 L's of confidence, where kids can look in the mirror, make peace with the totality of who they are, not just picking out one little crack and making that their whole identity. Yeah. So the 4 L's of confidence, firstly, the first L, looks. This is where we feel insecure about first. It'll be something to do with our looks, and when we're attacked and bullied, looks. Too tall, too short, too fat, too skinny, acne, braces, glasses, headscarves, turbans, whatever. It's something that we can see, that we can attack in another person. This is what bullies are looking at. And if we don't make peace with those bits that we look in the mirror and see, then when someone attacks us about something that we're already not liking, doubles up, amplifies. So when I'm looking in the mirror and I'm saying I'm skinny, weak and ugly, when someone teases me and goes, you're ugly, you're never going to get a girlfriend. Yeah? You're skinny, anyone can beat you up. It's runaway skeleton because you run away. They're just amplifying what I'm saying to myself. So the first part of the workshop, when we go into making peace with the mirror, mapping down all the things that you love about how you look and the things that you're not happy with how you look to start with. And then we start balancing that out and then diving in and dealing with what we can deal with. So the first L of confidence is your looks. Later on in life, I wasn't worried about how the face looked. I was starting to put on a little bit of weight. So I've gone from body images of being too skinny to becoming quite a big, strong, tough guy, to going to the other side of being overweight, and worrying about how I look with my top off. All right, so this is natural. Summer's coming up, so body images are a thing at the moment because we don't want to be judged. And this is where everything comes from, judgment, right? So we try and not judge ourselves in the mirror. We understand what we like and what we don't like, amplify what we like, work on what we don't. First L of confidence, your looks. The second L is your language, what you are saying and your ability to communicate. Now this is huge in Asia because if your English language skills aren't as high, your value is lower. But more importantly on social media, what you're saying must match what the majority of people are saying. Because if you get into an argument on social media, and you only have to mention the word Donald Trump, that's when all the conflict starts because people are disagreeing with what you're saying. So automatically you have to look a certain way and you have to be saying what's accepted. All right? And a lot of our kids will play it safe and not say anything. So when they're struggling, they don't reach out. All right? So you must always encourage your kids and your young people to disagree with you. Now it will backfire a lot of times because it never happens when you want it to happen. But this is what we do with our kids, a lot of the kids that I work with. Here's a situation, how do you see it? And if it's a total opposite of what you see, don't disagree with it. Ask why they see it that way. Let them express a different opinion without slamming them for it. Daddy, why do I have to do this? Because I said so. That's just shutting that down. And if you explain it and they disagree with it, then examine that. And we have a rule with my kids. We can debate anything you want to debate until mummy or daddy says no or stop. And then that's the end of it. all right? But let them encourage, let them have a voice, let them disagree, let them feel and hear what it's like when someone disagrees with them. And let them understand that when they speak this, we are discussing and debating what we're talking about. So I'm not debating your worth as a human being, I'm talking about what you're talking about. Because we can disagree and we can debate, but our young people are seeing that as a direct attack on their value, on their worth. So with my kids and the young people I deal with, we encourage debate, we encourage disagreements, to understand that we're disagreeing with what you're saying, not you. This is the difference. And when your kids act out, and they'll act out, they're kids. You acted out when you were a kid and a young person, so don't get all judgy all of a sudden, all right? I did the same. But when they act out and they push, take the push and examine that. Understand why, what's going on, what are you thinking about? And then if it breaches a core value of the family, then you can say no, justify your position, you can carry on. Okay? So looks, language, what you're saying, conflict from what people are talking about on social media is out of control, because kids take that as it's an attack on them, not what they're saying. The third L, likability. That's why Facebook calls it likes. This is what you have to look like, this is what you have to be saying in order to get this many likes. Now, social media has more of our kids and our young people's focus than us as their parents or their influential role models. So here's a question for you. Whose voice do your kids and the young people in your life hear the most in a 24-hour period? Because whatever they're watching, listening and feeling the most in a 24-hour period will become their reality. And your voice will be a small part of that. If the world and social media and kids at school are saying you're ugly, you're ugly, you're ugly, you're ugly, you're ugly, and they only see you in the morning and at night, and I love you and you're beautiful no matter what, this is not going to work. Understand what I'm saying? So your voice has to be the loudest in a 24-hour period, or the strongest. So every morning, every night, every chance I get, I keep saying to my kids, it annoys the living crap out of them, and for parents, this is where we can get some payback. I'm constantly telling them how much I love them, but I'm being very specific. Honey, I loved how you helped your brother out. Why? Because we're kind and we're caring as a family. I am constantly the voice in their ear. This is another reason I do a lot of these online talks, because my kids can't get away from it. If they're on YouTube, daddy's speech is going to pop up somewhere. And if they're at school, the teachers know who I am. So my voice and my positive messaging is louder than any negative messaging they can get if they're learning to make peace with the mirror. Because if they're telling them something different in the mirror that I don't know about, and the world's amplifying what's wrong, that can grow in secret. Okay? This is heartbreaking for parents and kids. So first L of confidence, looks. Second L, language, what you're saying, your ability to communicate. Third L is your likability. We must teach our kids to love themselves in the mirror. We must amplify and be the loudest, strongest voice of love in their life every 24-hour period. And it's very, very difficult when we're so busy. But if you find you've been super busy this week, and today is a Tuesday that I'm recording this will come out on a Wednesday. If you're not watching this on a Wednesday and you haven't spent much time with your kids in the week yet on Monday, Tuesday, set a day aside. Take the day off work. Pull your kid out of school. We're spending a day together and keep filling up their self-esteem bucket. One of the greatest quotes I hear about parenting is our job as parents is to fill up our kids' bucket of self-esteem so high that the world can't poke enough holes in it to empty it before they get back to us. Because that's what the world will do. And then the last L, the fourth L of confidence, is legitimacy. Everything that gets attacked in your kids and our young people will determine their legitimacy as a human being, their place in the world, their place in the group, their place in the family, their place at school, their legitimacy as a human being. If you don't look this way, you don't say these things, we don't like you, which means you're not a legitimate human being in our group on this planet. And this is where a lot of our sexuality gets attacked. Our LGBTQT family gets absolutely attacked, because if you don't believe what we believe, you're not legitimate. And then it works backwards. Because you're not legitimate in how we think or feel and behave, then we don't like you. We don't care what you say because you look like this. All right? So if any of your family, any of your kids, any of your young people And if you can't do this, I'll do this for you. Love them. Irrespective of sexuality, gender, culture, religion, love them. They are your flesh and blood. Love them. I can't choose to be gay because I'm heterosexual. And if I was born gay, I couldn't change that preference because that's how I was born. The blood of my mother and father beats in this heart. My blood beats in the heart of my kids. Don't judge your kids. The world's going to do that enough. Just love them. All right? And the other piece of advice for legitimacy is really separate from your kids their behavior and their words. So if my daughter says something that I don't like, I'm not going to say, I don't like you, you are a spoiled brat, because I'm doing this to her, right? I can say, honey, I love you, but I don't like what you said. Honey, I love you, but how you just behaved then, that's how a spoiled brat would behave. That's not you. So please separate the identity of this flesh and blood that's yours that you love from any words or behavior that you're currently in conflict with. Keep that separate. Bottom line is you love them as they are. Actions and attitude outside of that, talk to that, not attack them. All right? So with making peace with the mirror, we ask very specific questions that you'll see in my speech. What do you see when you look in the mirror? And these are exercises that we do in our workshops with your kids. So you can sit down with your kids and let's go through this. I just spoke to this guy that looks like a big white Ang Mo, but he was born in Singapore. And he went through being bullied. And now he teaches how to build self-esteem and pride and self-confidence within that. And because he's from New Zealand, it's called in the mana, generating from the inside out. You see them doing huckers and things, right, from New Zealand, because we can generate it from the inside out. So making peace with the mirror, 4 hours of confidence. Sit down with your kids and young people, build that up. And as you're going through those exercises, it all relates to value, their self-worth, which is the next module, the VIP of mental health, value, identity, and purpose. So when we break down the value triangle, this is really important. It comes down to your core values, your currency, and your communication style, okay? So that's the value triangle. When we look at the currencies, there's 6 types of currency, but there's 2 I want to focus on. And if you want to find out what the rest are, you go to dionjensen.com, click on ebooks, you can download this ebook for free. But they are personal currency and social currency. Okay, so these are the first 2 that we deal with. What is you as you worth to your group, to your environment, to the situation that you're in? If you turn up into a situation or meet a group of people and they see you and they hear your name, what is the currency of you? And then social currency is how does that personal currency fit into a social environment? All right? And that currency has to be high for the people wanting to accept you. All right? It's very interesting because it's external. We want to build the internal side where, hey, my name is Dion Jensen, I'm happy with who I am. In the totality of me in the mirror, I'm happy with who I am. I have made peace with the mirror. There's certain little cracks there I like to shiny up with losing a little bit of weight, learning a few more things, maybe increase the ability to help more people. But in the totality of Dion in the mirror, I'm happy with that, okay? Which is the I, which is the identity. So if I'm happy with who I am, linked to my value, then that's always going to be strong. And earlier in life, when you're a young person or a kid, your value triangle builds first on what you're learning as you then figure out what identity gives you the most value. And that's why we started with the 4 hours of confidence, because social media in the outside world is trying to control what your identity should be to have a high value. How do they do that? You have to look this way, say these things in order to be liked and legitimate. And if you form that into your identity, then you have a high value. So again, how do we influence the identity and the value parts of the VIP triangle? Your voice, parents, your voice, role models, your voice influencers must be the positive voice they hear the most, or the most clearly, or the strongest, most powerful voice they hear in a 24-hour period. You constantly have to be building this up. And if this is not your normal life, then send them on a workshop or a course where they can learn these fundamental skills for themselves. Value, identity, and purpose. When you're younger, the triangle from value to identity, this link is where all the strength is to start with, all right? Your value comes from your identity. That's obviously linked back to the 4 hours of confidence. The older you get, it links into your purpose or what you do. And as we get older, we figure out, why are we here? Finding your why, finding your purpose. Well, we don't have to go that far with our youth and our young people. It's really very simple. If they're young men, they want to be accepted into some sort of social group, and then they want to get with someone that they're physically attracted to. Okay? So when I speak at schools and I use youth language, you young fellas just want to be part of a group and you want to get laid. That's the truth. All right? And everything that they're focusing on is to those two things. Be accepted in a group and to be attractive to the opposite sex or the sex that you're attracted to. How do you do that? You adopt an identity that has the highest value. If the people that you're trying to be accepted by, their value system is how big and tough and strong and how well you can play sports, well, that's the identity you're going to try and achieve, right? And if it's not, that's where you're going to feel weaker. That's where you're going to get targeted. But if you take those weaknesses as an identity into an environment that values that, then all of a sudden you're stronger. And the 4 environments that we want to build that is in the mirror, make peace with the mirror, in the home, this is the interaction between your loved ones and parents and kids, at school, and then later on in the workplace, and then out there in the world. Those are 4 environments. So make peace with the mirror, the 4 hours of confidence, into the VIP triangle, value, identity, and purpose, being a very important person. If you combine those workbooks with your youth and your young people and you build that solid, then positive mental health is assured, mental toughness, mental resilience, or mental adaptability, either or, right? You don't have to be tough if you don't want to be tough. You can be adaptable and stay out of the way. Then those things are assured. And then when you understand this side, when we come over to the other side of trauma and bullying and depression and anxiety and suicide, you will understand that it is just the side getting eroded. But if it's strong to start with, when these attacks come, they have nil effect. If there is no enemy within, the enemy without can do us no harm. It must start in the mirror. It must start with self-love. And those positive messages and voices and parents and role models' voice must be the one they hear the most and the most clearly in a 24-hour period. And if anyone is struggling right now with that, whether you have kids or you're a young person yourself struggling with any of this, then you can reach out to me, and I've got programs and workshops and books that can help. So the next thing I'm going to talk about after this is a short introduction to your subconscious bodyguards, in case any of you are dealing with young people or kids that have suffered trauma. All right, trauma from bullying, trauma from rape, sexual assault, any of the real dark stuff. I'm going to give you a vocabulary and a process to at least give these young people a voice so that they can explain in their own language how they're thinking, feeling, and behaving. And with that information, you're then armed to protect them and keep them safe, and then reverse engineer back through the VIP triangle, back to making peace with the mirror. This is crisis. This is the crisis stage. So let's talk about that. Okay, let's take this as far into the darkness as we can possibly take it. Over in Malaysia and Singapore and Asia, we're starting to see an increase in suicidal ideation, suicide attempts, and actual suicides. So how do we give a language to that darkness? And this is where I started. I started right here in the darkness, right at the suicidal level, when I wrote that book, The Good News About Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder. Now the reason why it was good news is because I created separate characters, they were comic book characters, to explain emotions, thoughts, feelings, and behaviors for certain characters. So when we create these certain characters, it's very easy to explain what's going on. So let me explain who they are. They are your subconscious bodyguards. Every single one of us has subconscious bodyguards in our mind with one primary objective: to keep you safe, to protect you, because they love you. None of this is demonic. None of this is an illness. This is natural human behavior. So for someone that's not training their subconscious, and let me qualify that, those of us in the military and frontline services, we know we're walking into trauma. We're walking into war. We may have to die or kill somebody. As a police officer, we may have to defend ourselves to stop from being killed or to stop someone killing someone else. As an ambulance officer, we're dealing with death day in and day out. So there's a certain type of training for you to overcome primarily the emotion of fear, okay? Because it's expected. But for those of our young people that aren't trained to deal with trauma, nor should they be, their kids, right? And so when kids or young people are exposed to trauma, they are just thinking, feeling, behaving the only way they know how. And that is depending on their subconscious bodyguards and how they've learned to live life. So let me explain that. In your mind, your conscious mind is in control, right? When we're asleep, the subconscious mind is in control. So anytime the conscious mind is not there, the subconscious takes over. What could stop the conscious mind being there? Asleep, an overload of trauma that shuts the conscious mind down, drink, drugs, traumatic brain injuries, all sorts of other things can shut the conscious mind down. And so when the conscious mind is shut down, the logical part of our thinking, our subconscious takes over. Uses emotions as filters and the chemicals in your body as energy, right? So let's name these characters. Our subconscious bodyguards, the first one is our scout or our watcher. Yeah? This is the subconscious bodyguard that looks for danger. This is the subconscious bodyguard that stops us from getting run over when we cross the street. Very simple. The next one is the gunner in military language, or the protector. The protector protects us from physical harm. Okay? This is when someone's walking towards us that looks like they can hurt us, we go the other way, alright? And if we can't, then we fight. Okay? The protector. And then the last one is the healer or the medic. And this is the subconscious bodyguard that looks after our feelings. Okay? So in military and frontline language, we have the scout, the gunner, and the medic. And in generic language, we have the watcher, the protector, and the healer. Okay? These subconscious bodyguards are active all the time. But because we're all different, with different life experiences and different training, one of those subconscious bodyguards will be stronger than the others. If your watcher is stronger, you become more wary. You're very cautious, right? If you're a protector, your protector is stronger, you come forward more, all right? Ready to protect yourself or other people. And if you're a healer, you protect your emotions and try and help other people with their emotions and their feelings, okay? Normal human behavior, different vocabulary, all right? No medical model, no psychological model, just my own words to explain things, okay? So when trauma comes in or something shuts down the conscious mind, one of your subconscious bodyguards will take over. It has to keep you safe so you can function. And all depending which one will then show what's influencing your thoughts, your feelings, and behavior. If your watcher has taken over, you're going to become more cautious. You're going to be starting to think as far as risks and threats are controlled. You will trust less to keep yourself safe. Your protector will come forward, push people back a little bit, all right, to protect yourself. And the healer will start shutting down emotions so that they can't get hurt, all right? You'll button off a bit in your emotions. Now, if that goes on for too long or the trauma is too much, those subconscious bodyguards who are heroes at the moment, they morph, they switch, and they become villains because their behavior doesn't fit in the normal environment. But they're still trying to do their job. The watcher, the scout, becomes a paranoid assassin, right? And what that means is, as soon as there's some sort of threat, they react with energy and then they hide. They isolate themselves. If they isolate themselves, it means no one can hurt them. The protector morphs and becomes the werewolf. You get a full moon, you get a werewolf. You get all the rage and energy coming forward. All right, full moon werewolf. That's when your family's walking around on eggshells. So if your young people are and they're biting back and they're reacting really, really quickly, the protector in them has morphed and become the werewolf. And then if the healer gets hurt or there's too much trauma, she morphs and she becomes a ghost or a vampire. And the ghost will do all the flashbacks and nightmares and all the bad things that can happen using fear and anxiety. Or she'll become the vampire and she'll latch onto your neck and remove your feelings so that you're numb, so that no one can hurt you. Now, you may withdraw psychologically to become numb. You might drink more to become numb, drugs, or go to a place that's like ice cold water and numb yourself down. Now this sounds bad, but it's still good news, because those villains are still trying to do the job of the heroes. And we have reinforcements on how to help with that. And none of this is the medical language, although it's all clinically endorsed. Because when I say werewolf, the medical model says hyperarousal. When I say paranoid assassin, the medical model says hypervigilance. And when I say vampire, medical model says depression. But what words do your kids use? What words do young people relate with, or relate to, or use? So what happened today? Rah! Oh, that's werewolf language. Let's do your moon state chart, find out what those triggers were, and find a silver bullet. If that makes any sense, you've just learned a process and a vocabulary to deal with any mental health issue that your young people have. It'll start with something in the mirror of the 4 hours of confidence that will attack something in the VIP triangle, and one of their subconscious bodyguards is just trying to protect them. And when you flip that around and you can help them make peace with the mirror, and you can build their 4 hours of confidence, when the challenges come, the subconscious bodyguards stand up and they stay the heroes. And if you want to learn that modality, then we have that in the Good News About PTSD book, which has the workbook in it. Again, it's free from dionjensen.com. I hope that helps you over there in Malaysia, and anyone else that's watching this. This whole program is called Inner Mana, inside generating your internal self-esteem, self-confidence. So if anyone's struggling with any of those things, I'm the guy to help. And it's been an absolute pleasure to do this for an association that has positive language and vocabulary with their mission statement. This is the Association of Positive Psychology. I'm Dion Jensen, an absolute honor to share with you today. Goodbye.